Human history and prehistory is filled with an endless amount of mysteries that can keep humanity puzzling over its true origins for eons to come. One of the ways we find ourselves attempting to understand these gaps in time, as well as the facts of our origins and developments, has been through the recovery of age-old artifacts, relics, buried sites, and long-forgotten written accounts. It is through these discoveries made in the archaeological field that have allowed us, in the modern age, to catch a glimpse as to what our ancestors may have been doing and why they were doing it. However, some discoveries are so strange and mind-blowing that it has left even the top researchers in the field questioning the legitimacy of their findings. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we will be going over 5 of the most mysterious ancient artifacts discovered that scientists couldn't explain. The Bassano Vars. One of the strangest objects to have ever existed is that of the Bassano Vars. Though incredibly beautiful in its design, this 15th century vase, crafted from carved silver, has been known to carry with it a dark and terrible power. Despite the number of Italian rumours that surround the creation of the vase, the only story that seems to hold any credence is that told by Italian folklore that dates back as far as the original founders of the vase. According to the folklore, a soon-to-be married bride, born in a small village located north of Napoli, had been gifted the vase by an unknown individual. That night, after accepting the vase, the woman was found writhing on the floor, clutching the vase closely, only to have suddenly died shortly after. In her death throes, she cursed the vase and claimed that it would only bring misfortune and tragedy to anyone of whom owned the vase for their own personal collection. It's due to this curse that many people believe that the Bassano vase holds a mystical power that has caused many of its future owners. Oddly enough, every owner that has been in possession of the vase has suffered immensely. In some cases, most have died shortly after adding the vase to their personal collection. After the death of the nameless woman, the myths claim that as the vase moved between family members, each person having once owned the vase would mysteriously die shortly after. Despite the value of the Bassano vase, this would eventually cause the surviving members of the family to bury away the vase and hide it at a secret location never to be found. However, the Bassano vase would be rediscovered back in 1988 and continue its streak of mysterious deaths up until the local law enforcement buried the vase at a hidden location, hoping that the vase would be forgotten for good. Palpa Flat Mountain. Seen as one of the most convincing pieces of evidence for that of ancient civilizations having once possessed advanced technologies is that of the archaeological discovery of the Palpa Flat Mountain. Ancient astronaut theorists have often posited that perhaps the gods of ancient cultures that supposedly descended from the stars were not actually gods but rather advanced alien life forms. This would make sense given the fact that many cultures directly write about how the gods came from the stars or on machines that could fly. Interestingly enough, the ancient Nazca tribes also seem to hold a similar belief to their religion, and the evidence in the area only shows this further that it could very well be the case. As many different pilots flew over the area of the ancient tribes, a shocking discovery was made in regards to what they could see from the sky. Lines drawn out in the desert were made visible from the sky that appeared to be created over many miles of distance. In fact, the lines were detailed images and navigation trails that would have helped possible aircraft find areas to land and travel to. This was made only more interesting as located nearby these large creations is that of the Palpa Flat Mountain. Located on the Palpa Flat Mountain is a completely flat mountainside as if flattened down by vast ancient technologies. This is made more peculiar as it seems to be the only flat mountain in the region, with a top that looks artificially cut from its base. Located on this flat top are lines and creations that pilots have often mistaken for a landing strip for aircraft. This has led many of the ancient astronaut theorist communities to believe that perhaps the tribe helped their gods by creating these lines in the sand that were only visible from the skies. These lines could be used similar to that as modern-day concrete arrows used to point towards landing strips and other aviation important signals. This would be a plausible explanation, as the lines on the ground are not visible and would not be able to be used religiously or for any other important purpose without the ability to see it from the sky. Interestingly enough, the lines seem to be very old and ancient and provide proof as to the tribe's advanced knowledge in geometry in order to create massive images in the sand that they could never see themselves. Additionally, these pieces appear to be images of things the tribes held with utmost importance, such as that of different kinds of animal life and strange symbols that are nearly impossible to understand. Today, experts have no explanation as to the cause for the creation of the lines or the purpose they serve outside of both a religious connotation and assistance in aviation. Siderium of Oviedo. One of the most valuable and mysterious ancient artifacts associated to Jesus is the Siderium of Oviedo. It is a small piece of cloth that is believed to have been wrapped around the head of Jesus Christ after his death. It is believed that this cloth is the same cloth that has been mentioned in the Bible as well. This blood-stained piece of linen cloth is 33 inches in length and 21 inches in width. In 840 AD, a special chapel was built to house this significant artifact. The chapel was built by King Alfonso II in the Spanish town of Oviedo. The cloth has been kept inside an oak chest that is covered with silver gilt and has Roman-style decorations. This chest is known as Arca Santa, and it contains some other relics belonging to Jesus as well. However, the most important relic that it contains is the Siderium of Oviedo. As with any other ancient religious artifact, the Siderium of Oviedo also has its fair share of believers and skeptics. According to historic records, it first appeared around 570 CE when a pilgrim claimed to have seen the cloth in a monastery near Jerusalem. Later, during the 7th century, it was taken to Spain. Since then, it has been kept in the town of Oviedo. The graves of slaves. For some unknown reason, the Egyptian government and the expert Egyptologists claim that there were never Semitic-speaking people or Hebrews of which that were enslaved in Egypt all throughout its history at any point in time. Quite obviously, these findings and claims directly contradict the stories of the Torah and the Christian Bible, of which many claim to be an effort made by the Egyptian government given their tensions with the Israeli government and against Christian organizations. Interestingly enough, the truth is that there is overwhelming evidence that Semitic-speaking people inhabited Egypt, including a direct reference to the Torah that specified a second pharaoh of whom was Hebrew, and possibly the existence of Joseph in the time before Moses. In fact, by the late Middle Kingdom era, of which was roughly 3,700 years ago, the Semitic-speaking people had achieved the highest forms of power in Egypt, in the form of the second pharaoh ruling the entire lower kingdom of Egypt, along with more than 27 scarabs found in Egypt, Canaan, and Nubia, confirming these changes in power. It also appears that evidence of these Semitic-speaking people were found in the discovery of a pit of Hebrews dated around the end of this reign, of whom were believed to have possibly been thrown into a mass grave similar to that commonly seen in the treatment of slaves. The Egyptian record then goes on to specify that Semitic-speaking people were banished when a strange and mysterious group known as the Hyksos came into power, showing that there is more than enough artifacts and evidence of the reign of a second pharaoh, the banishment of the Hebrew people, and pits of mass graves that held Hebrew slaves. Although Egyptologists have not only completely refused to speak on the matter and find the evidence to be nothing more than an out-of-context belief that doesn't fit with their own, it is obvious that they have no way to explain the authenticity of these accounts and the biblical one. the ancient pyramid of Giza. One of the biggest discoveries that helped to launch the careers of many self-proclaimed experts in the study of Egypt and its ancient culture was the discovery that the pyramids of Giza were constructed by the pharaoh Khufu, of which puts the pyramids at a certain date of construction and time. The problem with this discovery is that the only evidence of the name of the pharaoh referenced on the pyramid was an old carving in the Campbell's chamber that many believed could have been the cartouche of Khufu and his royal signature. As it later turned out, the carving was an obvious forgery, with the dating of the piece, the damage done to the piece, and even the incorrect spelling and carving of the cartouche being the smoking gun evidence that it was nothing more than Egyptologists looking to take on a false sense of fame and fortune with their published works. This has led to an incredibly large piece of history that has been completely wrong, and given the fact that the majority of works in the modern day were built off of these ancient findings, it appears that the experts could have gotten it completely backwards. Not only is there physical and scientific evidence of the pyramids being much older, possibly even older than human civilization itself, but it appears that the Egyptian government has politicized this issue so that no other people and countries can lay legitimate land claim in the territories currently being of the organization of the Egyptian people. This has led many Egyptologists to reject true evidence of dating, references to the timeline of an actual reign of a pharaoh, and even the complete rejection of any ideas involving alternate explanations of construction, time frame, and even historical impacts. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.